Carowinds is one of the greatest amusement parks in this country. I dedicated a full trip in 2024 just to get my laps on some of these amazing roller coasters that we're about to talk about. Before we get started, please like this video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, please leave a comment down below. I would greatly appreciate your support. I'm a pretty small roller coaster and theme park channel, and I'm trying to keep this growth moving. Thank you so much. Before we get started, I do have to say that I never got to ride Nighthawk. I first visited Carowinds in 2022 and Nighthawk was closed, and in 2024 it was closed for all 3 days of my trip, and then we later found out that they were removing it anyway, which is kind of depressing. They're also removing the drop tower, which I love the drop tower at Carowinds, so that sucks. So I am a little salty that I missed out on the Vekoma Flying Dutchman. I also missed it at Kings Island. I never rode Firehawk. What's funny is there's literally a train for Firehawk sitting underneath the brake run for Fury. It was there in 2022, and when I came back in 2024, I was surprised to see it still there. It looked like they didn't touch it, and now we just find out that they're removing it altogether, so it is what it is, I guess. Carowinds has 13 different roller coasters, so we're gonna start things off with number 13, which is Wilderness Run. This is by far the smallest roller coaster in the park. I believe it's an E&F Miler kiddie coaster, so it's a little janky. There's nothing wrong with it, it's very cute. It's just by far the smallest attraction in the park. I did get the credit though, so when I was visiting Carowinds, I was worried I would not be able to get the credit, but it worked out. It was actually a really embarrassing ride through. I think I had a Zen ride on it, or maybe it was me and one other person, one other child. I think I rode in the front row for some reason, which I never do. I went to Carowinds with my ex-girlfriend and she didn't want to ride it with me, so I just had to suffer on my own. That was not the vibe. Anyway, number 12 is Kitty Hawk. So this honestly has a great case to be number 13, because this is a Vekoma Hang and Bang, and this was the third Vekoma Hang and Bang I've ever been on. The first one I rode was at Kings Island. I rode it as Flying Ace Aerial Chase. The second one I rode was the Bat at Lagoon, and this one was the third, and this one was by far the worst. I was really shocked when I rode the one at Kings Island and the one at Lagoon. I didn't think those rides were that bad. This one sucks. It was so rough. It was crazy. It was so much shakier than the other two. I was just ready for the ride to end pretty much right after it started. It does have a really cool name though. It has a triple meaning. I really like that. It's called Kitty Hawk because it's a kiddie coaster that's inverted, so Kitty Hawk works really well. Also, I feel like Kitty Hawk is a reference to Nighthawk, which is the roller coaster right next door. Rest in peace. And of course, Kitty Hawk is very significant to the history of airplanes. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So honestly, this ride might have the best name in the park, but the ride experience does not live up to that. We're moving on to the third kiddie coaster in this park. It is Woodstock Express. I really appreciate the diversity. There's one traditional kiddie coaster, and then there's an inverted kiddie coaster, and then there's a wooden kiddie coaster. So it's very well done. I appreciate that. These Woodstock Express coasters are pretty basic. There's not much to say about them. I think this was the third one that I rode because I've been on the one at Kings Island and Kings Dominion. It is pretty fun. I do like the buzz bars. It's pretty cute that this ride has buzz bars, but the trains are pretty small, so I'd probably just sit one adult per row. I mean, you could squeeze two in there, but it probably would not be comfortable. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the top 10. Number 10 is Carolina Gold Rusher. This was the first roller coaster on this list that I rode in 2022, and when I got back to it in 2024, I liked it a lot more. I thought it was a lot smoother. It's a fun and peaceful ride. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's pretty fine. I do like this one helix underground, and it has this weird transition where the helix stops for a second and then it keeps going. So it's just what's up with that profiling? But it has a really cool setting. What I don't like about it is how the restraints are all connected, just like Cedar Creek Mine Ride at Cedar Point. The 3 lap bars in a car lock together, so not ideal. I prefer when each rider has their own lap bar, or even if their own row has a lap bar. Not being able to see how it's gonna lock because there's people in front of you and behind you is just kind of uncomfortable. So not my favorite at all, but it's really not that big a deal. Moving on to number 9 is Carolina Cyclone, the Aero Looper. This was much more forceful than I remember it being. It's definitely a very janky ride experience. This is pure aero. I described it as a smaller scale Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. The back-to-back loops are very, very intense. and for that reason, I don't think it's rewritable. One of my favorite things about some aero loopers is the corkscrews. When it takes it really slow, there's some awesome hang time, but Carolina Cyclone did not have hang time through its corkscrews because it just took the course so quickly. There's no airtime on this ride. It's very, very janky, but it is pretty fun. Like, I appreciate it for what it is. It's just not my thing, you know? My ex-girlfriend hated this ride, but as a coaster enthusiast, you know, like, it's a classic American aero, you know? Even if it does beat you up a little bit, it's still impressive. The top of the loops felt like it'll snap your neck because they're just so tight. Like, I feel that on a lot of aero loopers because they use the copy-paste loops, so that's pretty funny. And of course, just like most aero coasters, the back of each car has very limited leg room. I also like that the final helix is underground. I remember thinking that helix was pretty janky though, so not the best. We're gonna move on to number 8, which is Ricochet. So I am very, very, very familiar with Goofy Sky School at California Adventure, and this is basically Goofy Sky School with an extra bunny hill and the second drop. It's a really fun ride experience. I've been on this layout so many times that I only did it once at Carowinds. Like, I just wanted to get the credit and then spend the rest of the time with the park originals because I live on the other side of the country. One funny thing about this ride though is that the brake run like totally punched me in the gut with the restraint, just like the Wild Mouse at Lagoon, so that was not comfortable. But you know, it's a cute little Wild Mouse. It's a perfectly fine family coaster. I will say that this park could probably benefit from another family coaster. Like, right now it's really just this and Carolina Gold Rusher. Like, I feel like a more modern family coaster could work really well here. I think they're getting a new kiddie coaster, but they're set on kiddie coasters. They need like a family style attraction. But moving on to number 7, we have Vortex, which is the stand-up coaster. This was only my second stand-up coaster, which is kind of crazy to say. It is a very small scale layout, like it only has 2 inversions. I rode this coaster twice. I rode it in the back row and I rode it in row 2. Just like most people, I'm not a big fan of this standing position. It's kind of disappointing that this ride missed out on that fad of converting stand-up coasters into floorless coasters. Like, it's clear that Cedar Fair didn't see a return on investment on Rougarou or Patriot at CGA, and that's like the entire reason that this ride is still a stand-up coaster, because everyone just assumed that Vortex would eventually be converted into a floorless, but it's still operating as a stand-up. That being said though, even as a floorless layout, this ride probably wouldn't be that great, just like Patriot. The corkscrew and the vertical loop were nothing special, and everything else was just fine. There was a forceful helix after the vertical loop, but this ride experience was pretty forgettable. It's pretty short, and as a stand-up, it's not comfortable. So I know a lot of people consider this to be one of B&M's worst roller coasters, which I completely understand. Like, it's not anything special. It's really not noteworthy at all, but I wouldn't describe it as a terrible ride experience. Like, I would say it's more comfortable than Carolina Cyclone. Moving on to number 6 is Hurler. This ride is very, very, very disappointing in both the front and the back. I didn't think it was that rough, which was interesting, but it just had like absolutely no forces. It did have a shuffle through the entire ride. I was expecting it to be like way, way, way worse. And of course, the first valley after the drop is a little bumpy. Honestly, that last turn is also a little brutal, at least as of my last rides. When I rode this in 2022, I remembered this one hill having airtime, but I felt nothing in 2024. Once again, in the front or the back, nothing. So I don't hate this ride experience, but it's just not that interesting. It is really funny that if you look at Thunder Run at Kentucky Kingdom, which is basically the exact same layout, it's just way better of a ride experience as of my last rides on Thunder Run, because it just takes the layout with more speed and it's also smoother. So I'm not sure if Kentucky Kingdom just takes better care of Thunder Run than Carowinds does to Hurler, or what's up with that. But everyone and their mom knows that this ride would be an awesome RMC, because Twisted Timbers is one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. Speaking of RMC Hurler, you should 100% check out my Carowinds wishlist video, especially with the closure of Nighthawk. There's just so much potential with this park. The new Six Flags Mega Corporation has their headquarters in Charlotte, so God only knows how this park is going to expand in the future. And I sure hope that RMC Hurler is is on their list, but that's a whole other discussion if they're even gonna work with RMC. Anyway, we're getting a little distracted. We're gonna move on to number 5, which might be a controversial take, but I put Flying Cobras this high. I am a little nostalgic for the boomerang ride experience because Knott's Berry Farm used to have a boomerang. I only rode that boomerang a couple times before it was removed for hang time, but I was really excited to ride a boomerang with the vest restraints, and I walked away very impressed. I thought the vest restraints helped so much. I was very impressed with this ride experience. It's very forceful, and I genuinely believe that it deserves the 5th spot in the park. I got to do it in the very front and the very back. Sitting in the front row going backwards into the loop was really intense. I mean, obviously the whole layout is super intense. It's just so powerful. Just because the vests take away the headbanging doesn't mean that this ride isn't janky. Like, the Cobra Roll had a brutal transition. It does violently jerk to the right in the Cobra Roll, especially in the first pass through. Like, it janks you to the right really strongly during that corkscrew. I don't even know how to describe it. This first part of the Cobra Roll right here. It's very forceful and it's an awesome ride. And unlike Carolina Cyclone, I had no problems with legroom. The vest was a little tight in the station, but it didn't bother me at all during the ride experience. So this ride is just so fun, and it was really nostalgic for me, which I'm sure is weird to a lot of you watching this video right now. Like, I'm sure there's a good chunk of you who are absolutely fed up with the boomerang ride experience. But I really haven't been on that many. I've been on, obviously, the one at Knott's, the one at Fiesta Texas, before it had the vest restraints, and the one at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. So this was my first one with the vests, and it did not disappoint. I genuinely consider Flying Cobras a good ride, but it's obvious to anyone looking at the Carowinds lineup that this park has a big 4. The top 4 coasters in this park are some of my favorites I've ever ridden. I love these rides so much. So let's get started with number 4, which is Afterburn. I got 10 plus laps on this ride. I haven't made a review video yet, but it is on the to-do list. I got to ride it in the rain. I got to ride it at night. I actually have a funny story with my rain rides on Afterburn. I was wearing zipper pockets and I had my phone in my pocket, and when we were going up the lift hill, the row in front of us hit the angle first, and when that happened, it dumped a ton of water onto my lap, and with my phone in my pocket, when I got off the ride, my Face ID wasn't working, and it never worked again. So Afterburn broke my Face ID on my phone. I got a new phone not too long later, so we're chilling. Anyway, this ride is very forceful, especially at night. The drop has some great G-forces in both the right and left seat, but obviously the visuals on the left seat are more interesting because you get flown out, even if it is just over the parking lot. You can feel the blood rush to your feet on most valleys in this ride. The Batwing is my favorite part. Obviously the back row is the most forceful, but the front row has the best visuals. It's just a very intense and forceful ride experience. The Zero G roll felt a little less whippy than the one on Flight Deck at California's Great America, which I compare those two rides a lot. Flight Deck is baby Afterburn, and I absolutely love Flight Deck. I made a full review video for that attraction. The corkscrew on Afterburn felt exactly like the one on Flight Deck, which is awesome. It has a great snap. One disappointing thing about this attraction is that the final helix isn't very sustained, but it's still a powerful moment. But I look to other D&M inverts that have a really powerful and very sustained helix, and I feel like that is kind of missing on this attraction. In my opinion, the Batwing on Afterburn felt more powerful than the Batwing on Montu, and I do like that this one is fully enclosed. Some of the trenches in this ride experience are really cool. Overall, it's just an awesome invert. This is easily in my top 5 favorite inverts, and I'm still deciding how I rank my top 5. Like, they're all very close in quality. Like, even this ride versus Flight Deck is not. It's a very tight race in my opinion, because Afterburn has more quantity, but I feel like Flight Deck has quality on every element. Like, Afterburn does have a bit of a dud element with the hill over the lift hill, which honestly is kind of needed because this ride experience is just insane. The forces are very impressive on Afterburn, and I'm glad I got to ride it as many times as I did, and you should stay tuned to the channel for that Afterburn review video, which will come eventually. Anyway, we're gonna move on to number 3, which is Copperhead Strike. Unlike Afterburn, I already have a full review video for this attraction. It is excruciatingly detailed because I absolutely love Copperhead Copperhead Strike. This attraction is so much fun. In most other parks, it would be an easy number 1, so the fact that this ride is number 3 is kind of insane. The diversity of forces in this layout are crazy. Like, this layout is absolutely genius. It has brilliant hang time, it has incredible airtime, it has sideways airtime, it even has fun positive G-forces. Obviously, with a Mock Rides launch coaster, the most disappointing aspect of this ride are the launches. They are pretty slow. There's like no acceleration. Like, honestly, the launch on Manta at SeaWorld San Diego might be more powerful than the launch on Copperhead Strike, which is a little embarrassing, but you know, it makes up for it with this awesome layout. Like, I love the Stangle Dive, I love the Camelback, I love that twisted airtime moment. This ride is absolutely glass smooth in the front row. The launched airtime hill was really disappointing. Like, I looked to the launch airtime hill on a ride like Pantheon, which is just bonkers. That's one of my favorite elements ever, and the one on Copperhead Strike is beyond forgettable. I love that this layout has 2 vertical loops and they feel very, very different. Like, the first one has insane hang time and the second one feels like a Schwarzkopf loop because it just takes it with so much speed. So even though it has the same element, they feel very, very, very different. Speaking of hang time, the JoJo roll is bonkers. That's so much fun. I love that element. And of course, that inverted top hat has some awesome hang time as well. There's just so much happening on this ride experience. I'm a big fan of Mock Rides. This ride absolutely blew me away the first time I rode it, and when I got a ton of laps on it in 2024, my love for this attraction just grew even more. I'm so excited to see Mock Rides build more roller coasters because a coaster like Copperhead Strike is so good. It ranks very highly for me. Not quite in my top 25, but it's up there, dude. This ride is so fun, and it's only 3 in this park, which is insane. Because number 2 is a roller coaster that's right up my alley. It is Thunder Striker. You know me, you know Diamondback is my favorite roller coaster of all time, and this is the sister coaster to Diamondback, so it kind of is the favorite child in this coaster lineup for me. Like, even though it doesn't rank number 1, it does have a special place in my heart, even though it doesn't reach the height of Diamondback. Like, obviously the setting is worse than Diamondback. In my opinion, it doesn't have as many airtime moments as Diamondback, but just even being related to Diamondback, I love you. You're my favorite in this class. The first drop is really great. It is a little disappointing because it gets compared to another roller coaster in this park, which we're about to talk about, but it's still a sustained airtime moment. The front row gets some awesome airtime during this first element. All of those Camelbacks hit really well. One thing that Thunder Striker does do better than Diamondback is this turnaround. This one's actually really fun. Like, the one on Diamondback is kind of boring, but this one has some fun laterals. After the mid-course brake run, Thunder Striker does kind of die. Like, the second half is much weaker than the second half on Diamondback, but it still has a couple fun floaty moments, and that helix is just fun to dive down by the ground. So even though it's not number 1, I still love this ride experience. It has that magical floater airtime that I love. I live for that sensation. It's so much fun. This ride is pure fun. I love Thunder Striker so much. It ranks very highly for me. And just like Copperhead Strike, I have a full review video for this attraction. It's crazy that these rides aren't number 1, because number 1 is insane. It's Fury 325. I rode this ride so much. I love it so much. It's an incredible ride experience. The drop is insane. That first low to the ground transition has an awesome airtime pop. The treble clef might be my favorite element of all time. And then those final 2 bunny hills are insane. They're so powerful. They're so fun. Those 5 key moments on this layout just make this ride one of the best in the world. I love Fury to death. And just like Copperhead Strike and Thunder Striker, I have a full review video for Fury 325, which you should 100% check out. I could yap about this ride for the longest time. And that is how I rank the roller coasters of Carowinds. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree with me? What do you disagree on? Where would Nighthawk rank for you? Because I would genuinely like to know. I never got that experience and I'm still salty about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.